Fredrick Griffith was born in 1879 in Hale, which is located in Cheshire, England. While nothing is known about Frederick's parents, he did have an older brother, Stanley Griffith. Stanley and Fredrick were very close and similar. Stanley was incredibly smart and worked as a microbiologist as well. In 1901, Fredrick Griffith graduated from Liverpool University and quickly started working. He worked for the Liverpool Royal Infirmary, the Thomson Yates Laboratory, and the Commission of Tuberculosis. In 1910, after many years of working very high and respectable jobs, Fredrick went to work for the English government, in what would end up becoming the Ministry of Health. Griffith worked with many microorganisms, but most importantly, he worked with pneumococcis, the bacteria that causes pneumonia. He conducted most of his studies on pneumonia by injecting it into rats under different conditions and comparing the results. Hi, Mr. Griffith. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Very good. My name is Johnny Moreno. I'll be conducting this interview. And before we get started, I'd like to just say thank you for all the work you did. It's very important and very interesting, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
All right. I heard that you went to college at Liverpool University in the UK. Can you tell me a little bit about your college experience, what you studied, how long you were there, and what you did afterwards?
So yeah, I studied medicine at Liverpool for 4 years, and Liverpool is just a pretty big university in Liverpool, England, which is pretty close to where I grew up. So I wanted to go to college kind of close to home. Shortly after Liverpool, I worked at the pathological laboratory of the Ministry of Health. I was very dedicated to my work, and I was always very methodical and thorough in my research. And I became very well known for being so dedicated to my work, but sometimes it got to the point where I was almost too dedicated to my work, so it pushed people away because they tried to get close to me, and then they would think that my work was more important to me than they were, which sometimes it really was.
We've tried looking into some of your past and childhood memories, and there's very, very little information out there about your family. Would you mind just going into depth a little bit more about your childhood, your family, who was close to you, and how it was growing up?
Yeah, so growing up wasn't too hard for me. We were fairly wealthy. I was one of two children. Me and my brother, Stanley Griffith, were very, very similar children. We were both very smart, always excelled in school. We both went to Liverpool, and we were both microbiologists after Liverpool. So later in life, I got married. I had 3 children. Families always made me very happy, but so was my work. My work was always just a nice safe space where I could just go get my mind off things and focus on my work. And I'm very proud of my work. I had a lot of trouble balancing work and family life. So some of my family had distanced themselves from me, especially more distant family like cousins, aunts, uncles, like that.
Right.
My really close family knew how caring of a person I was and knew that I just wanted to make important discoveries in my work. And so I still loved all of them. And I think most of them loved me. They just sometimes couldn't see that I cared more about them than my work.
If you don't mind just telling us a little bit about your earliest studies, they're very interesting and very important, obviously. There's just a little bit of information that isn't known, especially to the common person, so if you don't mind just getting into depth a little bit about those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So I started out researching many different microorganisms, but my most important findings dealt with pneumococci. Pneumococci are the bacteria that cause pneumonia. Pneumonia is just like a basic respiratory, it's kind of like the flu, it's more respiratory, you get around flu season, sickness, it's curable now, it's not too bad. But at this time, it was very deadly and no one really had a cure, which is why I was studying it. So at first, the goal of these studies, like I said, was to cure the pneumonia virus and to figure out how it acts, how it transforms, how it spreads from organism to organism.
Right.
But I discovered something far more important during these studies. I discovered the first blatant evidence that DNA carries hereditary genetic information. So before this, no one knew that DNA carried genetic information. Like, that was not a known fact. They didn't really know what did it. They know something did it, but no one really looked into all that yet. We weren't that in depth of that topic. But I developed the transforming principle. It states that the principle allows a certain strand of bacteria to transform into a different strand of bacteria. And that just basically means that the one strand of the bacteria can slide from organism to organism, and as it does that, transforms into a different strain of bacteria.
Right.
So I also discovered that the difference in virulence between the two strands was caused by whether or not they had a polysaccharide coating. Virulence just means like deadliness. It's like something of high virulence is of high deadliness. And polysaccharide coating is just like a little capsular coating that's around the bacteria that protects the bacteria from the immune system of the mice. So the high virulence, the high deadly strands, had the coating, which protected them from the mice's immune system, so that bacteria could be harmful to the mice. But the low virulence strands did not have the coating, and when they entered the mice, they would just be immediately killed by the mice's immune system because there was no coating to protect them.
Right. Very interesting. And lastly, throughout your career, you received very to little recognition and praise. In fact, you only had one public novel or story posted about you in the news article. Mm-hmm. How does that make you feel to know that you were doing such important work, but so little people knew who you were?
I mean, I don't really care. I knew that my work was important, and the people close to me knew that my work was important. At the end of the day, I'm just all about my studies. Throughout my years of research in science, I didn't worry about like attention or praise. I didn't really want it. I've always been kind of a private guy, and I didn't really want everybody like knowing that I was famous and like all up in my business, and like I just preferred to work in silence. Like I didn't need people to know that I was doing something important at the time.
Yeah.
I just wanted it to impact the world in a positive way eventually. I didn't want all the recognition for it. I just wanted to help the world for myself. I really I don't know. I was always just really happy doing my work in peace. Like I was happy with doing my work in peace, and those close few family members. I was very happy with my life in general.
Right. Well, thank you so much for this interview. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Not much is known about Griffith's private life. We know he loved skiing, going on walks, and vacationing at his country cottage in Sussex. He was known as very introverted and shy, and he didn't have many close relationships because he was so dedicated to his work. Although he wasn't very social, he was still a good person with a kind heart. People close to him have said he opens up once you get to know him, and his caring nature sparks a really strong bond between him and you. He didn't have many friends, but the few he had, he loved. He didn't publish much of his work, but what he did publish was important and of high quality. He and William Scott, his longtime colleague at the Ministry of Health, were both killed in 1941 during the bombing of London. A bomb landed on the building they both worked in. Not many people recognized his important works while he was still alive, but after his death was when people started to realize how monumental his work was. His work with pneumonia bacteria strains was significant for studying, understanding, and curing pneumonia, but the transforming principle developed from these works was pivotal for sparking the beginning of molecular biology and pivotal to science as a whole.